morning and welcome to the first session at Erwin Insights 2020. We're really excited to present DIO1, our vision to automate everything. I'm Mary Ann McDonough, CMO at Erwin, and I am really excited to be co-presenting this morning with Prashant Parikh, who is our SVP of all things data, runs our data modeling and data intelligence business. Good morning, Prashant. Thanks for being with me.
Hey, good morning. Happy to be here.
Excellent. So Prashant and I are going to take you through our vision to automate everything, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting. So I'm going to just jump in and get started, and Prashant, we'll see you in a couple of minutes, okay?
Right, thank you.
As we sat and really considered our vision for this space, one of the things that we were always contemplating was really how data readiness is everything. And if you look at the things on the bottom of this screen, whether it's driving digital experiences, so mapping customer journeys, whether it is enhancing digital operations, driving new innovation from a digital perspective, new applications offering ways of interacting with customers, or building digital ecosystems, marketplaces. At the end of the day, all of that digital transformation is powered by data. And now more than ever in this, I'm not sure if it's fair to say post-COVID world, but in the new era that we're living in with COVID all around us, many of the things that we see at the bottom of the screen, again, have become really, really, really critical for businesses as we look to change business models and really reform the way that we're approaching almost everything. So yeah, data readiness is everything, but it's automation that really creates the data pipeline. And as we continued to consider automation and look at our sweet spot and all of the things that we wanted to better understand about it, we decided to field some research. Many of you may remember we did our first research report, the State of Data Governance in 2019, just post GDPR. And so this was the second in our series. And we fielded a piece of research in conjunction with Dataversity. And we researched about 500 companies in North America, most of them very large in a variety of different fields. And we wanted to really understand where they were vis-a-vis data governance and automation and some of the things that propelled them forward or held them back. And now I'm going to share with you some of those things. What was really interesting was we said, talk to us about data value chain bottlenecks. Where are you having trouble, again, getting the data through that pipeline from one end to the other? And as you see here, a lot of really interesting answers. The number one thing was a challenge in documenting complete data lineage. 62% of people said that. Then 58% said that they had challenges understanding the quality of source data. Another big one that we hear all the time, finding and identifying and harvesting data at 55%, and then curating data assets with business content, so context and semantics, 52%. And this is really everything that you see here is a recurring theme that we often hear from our customers in terms of, what really challenges them and what brings them to buy. And then as we really started to dig further into it, we said, okay, let's look at data preparation and governance and intelligence and talk to us about, where are those things really getting stuck? What's taking the time? And one of the things that we found was that the length of the project time, slow delivery time, was one of the biggest inhibitors. Right? So the speed to insight was too long. The time to value was too long. The data quality and accuracy continue to be a challenge. That's a recurring theme as well. Reliance on developers and technical resources was another one of those things. People could throw as many data scientists as they could in the front office, but without that back end, with the people who were doing the harvesting and the preparation, essentially, they couldn't really move it forward and accelerate that time to value. So pretty interesting stuff. And then last but not least, we started to look at, what kinds of time are we spending on data activities? And the great news is most organizations are spending, 10 plus hours a week on data related activities. But the problem is that not enough of that time is actually being spent in analysis. It's really being stuck in the data prep. right? And IDC talks about this reverse 80-20 rule, where 80% of the time and effort is spent on the data preparation and only 20% in the analysis of the data. So if you think about the challenges that we showed in that first slide with digital transformation, and 80% of your time is really left on the cutting room floor, isn't stuff that's helping to drive your business forward, that's a really significant challenge. And so all of that is part of the genesis of our vision to automate everything. So, why automate everything? Well, if you consider this really, I think, phenomenal example of home automation. So if you think about the home of the 80s, everything was manual, not a lot of centralization, no real security. All of the things that you did within the home were repetitive. Your physical presence was mostly required for access. So especially for people who are, not working from home, or people that are not around, being able to get things serviced was a challenge. It was less convenient and comfortable. I couldn't come home after a weekend away to have my house be at a toasty 72 degrees, and we were consuming far too much energy. But then when we look at the alternative and we look at the smarter home, we see all of the benefits that we now get with that smart home, right? We get a lot less repetitive tasks. We get central control via smart devices. We get much better security, access from anywhere. We are able to see, with products like Ring, who's at our door and what are they doing. It again makes me nice and toasty when I get home from Vermont on a Saturday night, and I can pump up that heat. And then ultimately it saves significant energy, reducing electric bills and all kinds of other things. So clearly, this is a relatively simple example, but automation is incredibly important. So now I'd like to turn it over to Prashant, who's actually going to take you through how we apply this concept of automating everything to the vision for Erwin Data Intelligence and the Data Intelligence Suite.
Thank you, Marianne. So let's dive and let's figure out what Erwin DI can do and what it is planning to do with automation. So as you have seen from the previous house example, that automation adds a lot of value to any existing solution. It makes it easy to use, and it's more effective and more powerful for the end users. So at Erwin, our goal is to automate the whole data governance journey, whether it be top-down or bottom-ups. You choose, and we are on a mission to automate all the tasks that the data stewards do in a typical data governance journey. And the whole concept, the whole idea is that we want the data stewards to spend less and less time in building up and populating the data governance framework, and more time using the framework, getting the value out of it, so that it provides them value and it justifies the return on their investment. And this automation also helps to make sure that the data governance framework is always up to date and it's never stale, because as soon as it fails to remain current, the data that it represents is not accurate, and therefore the data governance initiative that they are on, it starts to fall apart. We will talk through the different aspects or the different stages in a journey of a data governance, and not that it has to be done in that order. And we will then talk about what we do today and what we plan to do going forward. All right, so the first thing is about the metadata ingestion into our platform. And here what we mean mostly is the technical metadata. Erwin has a concept of something called standard data connectors, and the job of the standard data connector is to connect to all the different data sources, whether it be relational, non-relational, or they might be using standard JSON or XSD files. We use JDBC compliant drivers to talk to them, or we use APIs, whichever gives us more richer set of information. All the standard connectors, they come part of the base product, so you don't have to pay for each of the connectors separately. The standard connectors also support scheduling, and we have different options on how the end user wants to update their existing metadata in case we detect a change. So we support versioning, and it depends on the customer how they want to implement it. But the whole idea is, again, that it is very automated, so that the newer metadata keeps on coming to our platform, and it's always updated. Next, we'll talk about smart data connectors. The standard data connectors that we talked about, it's all about data at rest. And here, everything is about data in motion, how your data is traveling across your enterprise, how is it getting transformed and morphed and travels from point A to point B. And how these smart connectors, they basically are able to document all this transformations and traversing of the data. They populate the Erwin metadata manager with the technical metadata. The other advantage or the other big thing that the smart connectors are good at is your documenting your ETL scripts. So you point us to your ETL script of your choice or your ETL template, and we are able to extract the lineage out of it. And on the other hand, the smart connectors can also help you move your data, transform your data from point A to point B by creating the ETL scripts to work with the tool of your choice. Now let's talk about a lineage, which is also part of your metadata ingestion. And this is about the visualization and documentation of your data in motion. So the smart connectors that we talked about in the previous slide, it helps us by collecting all this information, and then the Erwin lineage analyzer, it puts everything together in a graphical manner, so that whether you are a business user or you are a technical user, you can understand how the data is traversing in your enterprise, how is it getting transformed, and what are the different hops that the data is taking. The lineage information that is presented here, it can be used in multiple ways. So one example is that it will tell you exactly how your data is getting transformed and traveling from point A to point B. It also helps the technical users understand the data transformation, so that they can create test cases to make sure that the transformations in the production are taking place exactly how it is documented here, and verify the data at source and the data at target. Another example is if a CXO is looking at a BI report and they find some data abnormalities, then the data steward can actually look at the lineage for the BI report and figure out all the different data points that the data is going through before it ends up in the BI dashboard, and then look at each of the data points to figure out where the data is getting messed up. And the best of all is that this is all completely automated and scheduled solution. So you don't have to really upload any XML files or CSV files and make sure that every month or every week, as your data is changing, you don't have to manually update this lineage map that we have in our solution. It's scheduled and it's automated, and it will always be updated. This one is about the integration of Erwin DM and Erwin DI. So this is another way on how we are automating and how we are making it easy for the metadata to be ingested in the Erwin data intelligence solution. So if an Erwin DM customer can actually now take advantage of all the rich metadata that they have created and stored in the Erwin data models, and with a couple of clicks, they can configure some or all of their data models to be pushed to Erwin Data Intelligence Metadata Manager. Now, this has a couple of big advantages in the implementation of your data governance. So the first thing is that the data governance technical steward, now they do not need to go figuring out which assets that they want to harvest. All the data models are already there, and all they need to do is make sure that they end up in the data intelligence solution. The data governance admin now does not need to go asking for the credentials for the production databases to harvest it. It comes from Erwin DM, and this, for bigger enterprises, this itself is a very time-consuming job because getting access to production databases is not a trivial thing. The other big thing that this solution provides for is the single source of truth, which is that the metadata that is in Erwin Data Modeler is exactly the same as in Erwin Data Intelligence. So your data governance solution is based on your data models, which are already updated and up to date. And lastly, this integration also helps the business stewards because if your data model has your naming standard convention filled in, we also help them by populating the business glossary and making them start the business part of your data governance journey. So this is just another example of how automation and how integration is helping the customers on starting on the data governance journey. All right, so now what's coming next for the metadata ingestion, right? First thing that we will focus a lot on identifying and finding applications that needs to be harvested. So even the discovery of the application will be automated, so that once the discovery is automated, the harvesting is automated, then all your technical metadata will always stay current and up to date in your data governance solution. We'll also go more. We'll go more into collecting more richer metadata and not just tables and columns and their properties. So we'll look into figuring out and finding which users are using your data and what is their usage and what queries they are being using, so that you can get more. We can present a lot more richer information to the end users and give them more business insight. We also plan to get more smarter with lineage by looking at the data itself and not only relying on the ETL and ETL scripts that have been provided to us. We also plan on integrating with our Erwin Evolve solution, so that we can, for example, harvest the list of applications that the Erwin Evolve is hosting, and that will jumpstart the data governance journey and harvesting of the metadata. And obviously, we'll continue to enhance our standard and the smart data connectors as and when newer solution comes in, so that we are always updated with the latest technologies. All right, now let's go over our cataloging solution, or the smart catalog solution, as we call it. And we'll cover both the business and the technical cataloging capabilities in Erwin Data Intelligence. Let's start with the business catalog. The business glossary manager in Erwin Data Intelligence is the place where all the business assets are inventoried and stored. The meta model behind the Erwin Data Intelligence Business Glossary Manager is completely flexible and configurable. And what that means is that the end customer can define new business assets with the layout and the properties that they want to inventory in that, or they can even edit and modify the existing business assets that we ship out of the box. And the whole reason behind this is that most of the companies have their unique requirements. They have unique business assets that they want to store and inventory and make it a part of their data governance solution. And thereby giving them this flexibility and the power, they can adapt the tool to their own requirements, to their own unique requirements, and implement the data governance solution that they want to implement. On top of that, we also, out of the box, we ship business glossary, or the business terms, for a lot of different verticals like banking, financial, insurance, education, pharmaceuticals. Industry standard terms from Microsoft CDM and FIBO are also part of the Erwin Data Intelligence solution. We will obviously be, we'll continue to be on the lookout for newer glossaries as and when we find them. And the whole idea here is that we give, again, this is part of the automation strategy where we provide them the ability to jumpstart on the data governance initiative with out-of-the-box business glossary and the flexible meta model. Now let's talk about the data catalog for the technical data assets that which we talked about harvesting in the earlier section. And our technical data catalog is also flexible in the sense that at every level, whether it be at the application or the database or the table or the column, the customer can extend the meta model and store any amount of more information that they want to store, or if they want to store different tags, for example, or they want to store who is the owner of the database, or any other properties that they want to attach to it, they can do that by extending the meta model. And then we arrange all the harvested metadata and make it easier for the customer to search, navigate, and explore. We also have the ability so that the users can tag and bulk update the technical assets that have been harvested. So, for example, if they want to assign sensitive data attribute to a bunch of assets, they can do a search and select all of them or some of them and assign the sensitive data tag, and therefore all the assets will be marked as sensitive. Let's talk about a mapping manager, which is again part of our the data catalog solution. And this is the place where you will be storing, or you will be documenting how your data is transformed, how your data is traveling from point A to point B. All the different hops, all the different transformations, or the combinations of different columns to create a new column. We do this in a multitude of ways. You can import this via your existing Excel or a CSV file. You can drag and drop, and using the graphical designer, we can extract this from the ETL scripts that you are using, or you can just manually type it in. And again, we inventory all these things. We allow you to search and navigate it and extract the business value from these mappings, which actually feed into the lineage analyzer that we had talked about before. So what's next for our catalog solutions? So going forward, we plan to obviously enhance the out-of-the-box business glossaries that we talked about, that we are shipping. We also are planning to not only ship the business terms, but also the business rules, business policies, even DQ rules for each of the industry verticals. And so that you not only get the business terms out of the box, but you get a multitude of business assets out of the box for the vertical that you are working on. Again, more integration with Evolve to harvest and to look at the business policies that are documented in Evolve and try to extract the business terms out of it. So this will be more relevant to your enterprise, since they are harvested from the business policies and the business rules that you have documented in Evolve. We also plan to do auto association of all the business assets that we have shipped out of the box and that you have created using our AI solution, and we'll be talking more about this in our next sections. And the whole idea is, again, here that just like the technical metadata ingestion, we want to help you jumpstart the data governance journey from the business side by giving you out of the box flexible meta modules and out of the box business glossaries and business terms. All right. Now let's talk about what our AI and ML plans are, what we do today, and how we plan to enhance it. Erwin AI Match. This is our core AI ML engine, and we already use it in a couple of different ways, and we plan to enhance it and create more use cases to solve your data governance issues going forward. Currently, what the AI Match does is it looks at your business terms and it looks at your technical metadata and tries to auto associate the business terms and the business glossaries that you have with the technical metadata that you have ingested. We look at patterns. We use AI algorithms to analyze the table and the column names and figure out which business term is the most appropriate match. And we give you a couple of choices, and you go and select the ones that make the most sense for you. The goal here is that the associations between your business assets and between your technical assets are now discovered automatically, and this saves a lot of time to the technical data stewards, and it allows them to scale, and it allows them to do their job more effectively and more conclusively. Now let's talk a little bit more about mind map. Mind map is the graphical result of the associations, for example, that we talked about in the previous slide. But it is the graphical representation of all your assets and how they are linked with each other. So how your business assets are linked to other business assets, how your business assets are linked to your technical metadata, which business term is, for example, which business term is used by which business policy, is impacted by which business rule, the business term that you are focusing on, that its actual data is stored in which database under which column. All this information will be available to you using the mind map. The mind map also shows you the sensitivity indicator, and it allows you to propagate the sensitivity across your related objects, and to make sure that you're compliant. The mind map, Erwin's mind map, as far as we know, is the industry's most comprehensive visual tool for looking at and visualizing all your assets in one screen, and figuring out how one thing impacts the other thing. So for semantic map and metadata associations and mind map, what is our roadmap, right? First and foremost, we plan to continue to enhance our AI match algorithm and the AI match logic that we have, to cover more of the natural language processing, improve on the artificial intelligence for finding out the right abbreviations for all the English names. This will help to make sure that our matching of the business term to the technical metadata becomes more and more accurate and comprehensive. We also are planning to take into account the logical names and the column descriptions that exist in the technical metadata that we have harvested, and use them for these associations. The next thing we plan to do is to enhance the AI match to look into the data in motion aspect also, so that we can discover mappings and discover lineage in an alternative way, and not only rely on the ETL scripts and the BI reports to create the linear analyzer. We also want to enhance our AI match to discover and automatically associate one business asset to another business asset, right? So business terms to business rules to business policies. We want to discover and find these associations and suggest them to the business steward. The whole idea behind the AI match and the roadmap for the associations is that we want to create the mind map, or propose a mind map by looking at all the business objects, by looking at the technical metadata automatically to the business user, so that their focus is not to spend time and discover these relationships and associations, but they'll focus more on enriching it, making sure it is correct, guiding us, and then obviously extracting the value out of the mind map. Let's move on to our next section, which is data profiling and data quality. So data profiling, as you know, the name is going to suggest, we look at the data, we analyze it, and we figure out what kind of data is the user storing, right? So we will tell you how many entries are there for every column, how many of them are nulls, how many are non-nulls. We discover the most frequently used patterns and the most unfrequently used patterns in that data set. All this helps you to understand what the data score is, so that you can intelligently assign a data quality score to that particular piece of your technical metadata. We also allow you, the users, to use select queries and look at or take a sneak peek at a smaller set of the actual data that is stored in that particular column, and that goes a long way in understanding the quality of the data, in helping them decide if the data stored there is sensitive, confidential, if they want to and if they want to tag it appropriately. The roadmap for our data quality, we will, first and foremost, we want to extend our data profiling to make sure that we cover all different kinds of sources. So, for example, non-relational sources and XML files, JSON files, which we do not have support for today. And we also want to focus a lot on enhancing our AI match to look into the patterns that have been collected, to look into the data that is actually storing, and automatically suggest the sensitivity and the data quality score for that particular piece of metadata, so that we make that part also, make this part of the data governance journey also automated, and make it easier for the customers to scale and assign a data quality score. All right, let's talk about compliance, right? So one of the biggest objectives of a data governance initiative is that they want to be legally compliant, so that they pass all the audits, and that's a big desired outcome for a data governance implementation. Implementing GDPR or CCPA is not a trivial task at all. the data stewards and the data analysts, they have to look through thousands and thousands of data assets, identify them, figure out which of them are GDPR or compliant, not compliant, and then make sure that all the security policies are assigned to them. At Erwin, what we do is we ship out, for example, we ship out of the box GDPR policies and the critical data elements that make up the GDPR policy. And then our AI match will go through all your technical metadata, technical assets that you have harvested. We'll try to propose you a match for which technical assets might belong to which data element for those particular policies that you are trying to be compliant with and implementing it, and create that version of the mind map, for example, for GDPR. And what this does is that this level of automation to to search, identify, tag, associate, and mark those data as GDPR and sensitive is priceless. It saves the data stewards so much of time, and it makes them more effective, more productive, and they can with confidence say that this is that they are implementing and they're compliant with these particular policies because of the automation and because of the software that is backing them up. All right. Next one, this one is compliance again, but more around sensitive data classification. So the use case here is for the end customers to be able to identify and manage all their sensitive data so that they can then assign the appropriate policies and make sure that the data admins are aware of the sensitiveness of the data stored in their databases. Out of the box, we ship a bunch of sensitive attributes, but again, inherent to our flexibility, the customers can modify them and add more sensitive data attributes, which then you can use to tag your assets, whether it be technical assets or business assets. Again, we allow bulk updates of sensitive attributes. You can use the mind map or the lineage to propagate the sensitiveness from if one of the object's assets is sensitive, and then whichever one it is associated to, you can say mark those as also sensitive, because that makes sense that if a sensitive asset is linked to the other one, the target asset is also sensitive. We have a dashboard where you can view your sensitive data scores and how many assets are sensitive and where are they, which databases they belong to. So what's next on the compliance front and on the sensitive data detection, right? Again, we are in the process of enhancing our AI match, which is the core of our AI software engine that we have, to actually go through all your technical assets and automatically identify and tag them with the sensitive data attribute of your choice. We will also give you the option at that point to propagate that sensitive attribute to all the other linked assets from there. This itself is going to be such a time-saving and initiative for the end customers. It will go through all your technical assets, which range in hundreds of thousands of columns and in a decent enterprise, and it will look at all the data and figure out which of them is sensitive, propose it to you, and you can associate the tag you want. Now let's talk about the socialization and the social governance experience of your data governance solution. So far, we have focused on populating your data governance solution and making sure that your data governance solution has all the technical metadata ingested and the business information is there, all using out of the box solution that Erwin provides and the automation that we provide. Now that your solution is up and running, now it's time for the business users to start using the data and to make more business and to get business value out of it. And that's where our business user portal comes into the picture. It allows the business users to mine the data and to find the data asset that they are interested in, that they're looking for, understand how that data asset is related to the rest of the enterprise using the mind map or the lineage, and then they will be able to add the data asset that they have identified in their to-do list, and then they'll be able to, for example, ask access for it or create reports or whatever business requirement they have on top of that. But the key thing is how confidently and how fast they are going to isolate the data asset that they are interested in. Erwin Business User Portal takes the data democratization, one step further. Not only do the users have access to all the data in a business-friendly view, right? But they can also mark their data assets as favorites, or they can rate the data assets based on the value that they think they are deriving out of it. And all this ratings goes into the community, so the other users can now also use it. We also have the concept of a to-do list, which is going to hold the data assets that are of interest to the business user, so that they can narrow it down to that to-do list, and then they can work on that, the list of the data assets, by getting access to it or by running some analytics on it, right? So the whole idea here is that the business user will be able to get to the asset that they are looking for, using the ratings, using the socialization features, and then get more information around it. The aim of the business user portal is to free up the data to the user, so that they can find with confidence what data does the enterprise have, where is it located, and how is it used or associated with the other assets, and how the data is flowing through the enterprise. Workflows. This is another tool in the product that enables the admins to set up how a new asset will become part of the data governance framework. Who can register a new asset, who can approve it, who gets to enrich it, who gets to harvest it, who gets to do the technical associations, or create the mind map around it. All these things can be controlled by the workflow, which is very easy to configure. And once configured, it is completely automated and works behind the scenes. The newly registered assets of different types can be assigned different workflows, since the business needs and the requirements for different assets are different. Um, Workflow allows the admins to make sure that the data assets in the data governance tool follow a process and has all the information that it needs to have. You really do not want your data governance tool to hold unwanted assets or assets of poor quality, because then that's going to hamper your data governance initiative, and it will undermine the value of your data governance investment. Next one is about the role-based data governance as a part of exposing and socializing the governance solution. This is about how the data admin can control who gets access to which part of the tool, or which assets do the users have control for. And again, we integrate with all the major LDAPs and the SSO, so that it can be so that the erwin DI tool can be part of your network security, and the access can be documented in your Active Directory solution. Every asset, every types of assets that we create can be controlled for individual users or roles to have access to it, so that you can implement DI with complete security in your enterprise. Going forward, how are we going to enhance this socialization and democratization, right? One big thing is around gamification. So we want to encourage data stewards to make sure that when they create the asset, when they register the asset, when they enrich the asset, that the data asset that is part of the data intelligence solution has the most rich metadata around it. It has all the sensitive tagging, it has all the classifications, all the compliance policies, everything is associated to that. And we can encourage that by gamification, and by creating special rewards and avatars that people whose assets have the most favorite markings or the most ratings can use going forward. We also plan to include socialization in our business user portal, so that for example, we can have a chat room for users to ask questions and get answers for any particular assets that they're interested in. And to take this further, we also will enable users to create groups or forums within the business user portal and the data intelligence solution, so that they can all get together and collaborate on a particular set of assets, and make sure that those assets are nicely and richly documented and associated with the rest of the other assets that the data governance holds. And then finally, we want to also improve our search and be current with the technology and the newer generation. So, for example, voice power search using either Siri or Cortana, so that end users can actually find things that they are interested in much more easier. And then a big part of collaboration is kind of making the visualization much better. So if you have a complex mind map or lineage, and you want a couple of people to work remotely or physically together, we are exploring different techniques on how we can use newer visualization techniques using either the Microsoft HoloLens and other things coming up. And the whole idea is so that more people can work together in looking at the visualization, which gives you the most information about your enterprises, data assets, and how they're associated. All right, so to conclude, right, the erwin DI solution provides you with the ability to populate your system with the metadata from your enterprise, right? We help you every step with the built-in, out-of-the-box solutions and automation for every aspect of your data governance journey. We also want to make sure that your environment is and always stays controlled, which means you always are on top of your compliance, on top of your tagging and of your data as sensitive and satisfying your unique governance needs with the flexibility inbuilt in the product, and automation guiding you each step of the way. And erwin DI also enables and encourages collaboration and democratization of the data that is collected in the system. We saw that using the BUP, letting the business users mine the data assets, because that is the ultimate value of your data governance solution, where how users can identify and reach the data asset of their choice. And finally, AI and ML in its current form and with its roadmap, we will make sure that it helps push the success of the data governance implementation at every enterprise. It will be even faster and more effective. This automation, the software-based automation with guidance from humans, will make sure that the data governance initiative never fails or never falls behind, and it always stays current and accurate with the latest data in the enterprise. All right, thank you. That's all I have, Marianne.
And I'm back. Thanks. That was really interesting. I mean, one of the things that I liked a lot was the way that you talked about sort of what the vision was and then what we were delivering next. So I think it gave people the opportunity to get a bit of a further look out, which we're not always having those conversations every day, right? And then to really understand what the next step is in delivery of that. So I've got a bunch of questions. Let me just pick one place to jump in. So, one of the things I think that's a big theme, and I talked in another session about this yesterday, the whole, this space and the analysts and people who write about the space, I think a lot of times when they define automation, their definition of it is much more narrow than ours, right? And it's AI and ML. And while AI and ML is a massive field with a tremendous amount of opportunity, that for us is really just one piece of the automation. So talk to that just one more time, so everybody's really sort of fully engaged in the idea of automation everywhere.
Yeah, good question, Marianne. Yeah, so in our minds and in my mind, right? Automation is key, as we have been talking about, and AI/ML plays a big part of that. But AI/ML is not the only way, or is not the only way for automation, right? So a couple of examples are the way we ship out of the box business glossaries and business ontologies and the mind maps for GDPR implementation. That helps jumpstart and start the data governance journey for the data stewards, but it is different than AI. What we do with DM-DI Connect and harvesting metadata from either DM to DI or from Evolve to DI, and again that is automation, and but it's different than AI/ML. The other example is around our lineage and our smart connectors, how we are able to understand by looking at your ETL tool, how the data is traversing and morphing and transforming from the source to the destination, and how we can create data lakes by our smart connectors. That is very different from AI and ML, but is a big part of the automation, and it has already been, customers are already appreciating that and agreeing to that. So, I think we firmly believe, and I think that is true, that AI ML is a big part, but automation is
automation is bigger than that, right?
Bigger than, yes,
no,
yeah.
I think that was a great answer. So, okay, now you got me thinking about a couple of other things. So the whole shipping with FIBO and with Microsoft CDM and all of these ontologies, I know that that's a big part of also what we're going to continue to enhance over time. One of the reasons why people like and buy our solution, and you said it really well, I thought, was about implementing their governance, right? That it's that we don't come in with our standard approach and say, here's how you do it, right? We say, how do we fit most easily and most relevantly and in a most automated way into your business? So just talk a little bit about that with all of the ontologies and things like that and the strategy behind it, because I think that's really important. We don't have people that are building all that stuff. If they get it out of the box and there's a complete ontology for insurance that they can use 85% of, I mean, that's a dramatic savings of time, and that is automation with a capital A, right?
Yes. So our mantra, right, is that every enterprise will have its own unique set of requirements. And from the beginning, our data governance solution, we have strived to be very configurable and flexible in our meta model and in our approach to data governance. So yes, we have a technical part of the solution, technical data catalog. We have the business glossary manager. We have the business user portal. But each of those things are very open or very configurable. So if you want to document, let's say, a set of business applications, you can do that. If you want to document business issues in our product, you can do that. It's a very open platform. We can configure things based on your requirements. So we go into a customer implementation. We try to understand what their goals are, why they want to implement data governance, what kind of compliance they want to achieve. And then we configure the product to their needs. We work with them. If there are gaps, we work with them to build out the gaps. We work with customers like Eon, Zovio, JPMC. We understand what they want, and if there are things missing, we put it on the roadmap depending on the priority, and we do it. But a lot of times we are able to configure the product as per their requirement and implement successful data governance.
That's really great, and you know, I'll sort of bring us to a close at that point. You know, we often get questions in the RFP process or in the sales process about how customers can influence and be a part of what they do. And one of the things that I hear all the time from the people that I work with personally is how they appreciate the opportunity to co-create with us and to, you know, to help us drive the roadmap forward, to bring their ideas and mesh them with our ideas. And so that customer validation, I think, is a really big part of why we're successful. And I know your team spends a lot of time with customers, which a lot of development teams don't do that, right? So that's something that I think is really unique to us. So,
absolutely.
Well, excellent job, Prashant. Really appreciate your time taking us through. This sets the stage for 7 more sessions over the next 2 days. Coming up next, we've got a customer roundtable, Women in Data. I have the privilege of being the moderator of that. We've got 7 amazing women running big data projects across our customer base that are going to talk a little bit about what they do and how they do it. And then following that at noon Eastern time, we've got a terrific presentation with the newly public company Snowflake and Erwin, and talking about our combination with them to modernize data infrastructure. And just remember that we've got our booths are open through the entire event. We have a booth for each one of our solutions, for Erwin Data Modeler, for Erwin Data Intelligence, and for Evolve. And we've got folks in a services booth as well. And we've got the people from IT Central Station there who will set up an appointment for you to give product reviews, which are really important to us and all of us in helping drive decision making. So thanks again, Prashant, for being with us, and thank all of you for for being here for Erwin Insights, and I wish you a tremendous rest of the conference.